Hello, monsters, and welcome to the Horror Files. I am your host, Dead Alive Dana, and on this podcast, I dive into a particular horror movie, each episode providing insights and reviews, as well as the latest in horror movie news. And it's the Summer of Scares series, and we have perhaps the ultimate summer slasher in store for you today, full of motorcycle madmen, reused demon biker jackets, wet t-shirt contests, and plenty of horny teen shenanigans. That's right, monsters. On this episode, I will be diving into the late 80s Italian slasher, Nightmare Beach, from 1989.
1 week of non-stop partying guarantees to blow away so many brain cells you won't even remember your name. Oh, wow! Every one of these used by sunrise Easter morning. Well, I'm telling the whole school you're a bender.
I want to get off of this thing!
Welcome to spring break, the annual migration of the idiots.
Hey, biker parking only. Get a grip.
Chill out. Look, we don't want any trouble, all right?
Edward Diablo Santor, the state stands ready to execute you as charged. Do you have any last words?
May the Lord have mercy on you.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Some drunk breakers, thinking it's a fun trick. Sick
Diablo's biker buddies.
He vowed he was coming back.
This is yours. Assaulting an officer with a deadly weapon. That's cause to blow your fucking pretty head off.
Who killed my friend?
Who?
So IMDb describes the plot for Nightmare Beach as follows. After the execution of a motorcycle gang leader convicted of murder, a helmeted biker goes on a killing spree during spring break in Florida. The film was directed by James Justice and Umberto Lenzi, written by James Justice, Umberto Lenzi, and Vittorio Rambaldi, and stars Michael Parks, John Saxton, Nicholas de Toth, and Sarah Buxton. So before we really get into the film, just a couple little things. So like I said in the intro, the jackets that are worn by the Demons biker gang, they actually sport the logo of the 1985 Italian horror film Demons. And the music actually played in the film is also in the film Demons. So they reused a lot of stuff. Surprise, surprise. And John Saxon made a very similar movie called Blood Beach in 1980, which, if you haven't been seeing any of my Instagram posts for these episodes, the image in the background is taken from Blood Beach, substituting a sand creature beach killer basically for the motorcycle killer in the movie. And there's a cameo, Paul Gleason, who many of you might know as the principal from The Breakfast Club, and as the LAPD deputy chief in Die Hard, was the announcer at the wet bikini contest. He was actually uncredited. And the film is also known as Welcome to Spring Break. I realize it's a spring break film and we're doing the summer series, but hey, there's people in bathing suits, there's a beach. I'm calling it. This is my podcast. I can do what I want. And I'm including it in the Summer of Scare series because you know what? It fits. I mean, you can enjoy it watching during spring break just as much as you can during the summer. So there you go. So please be advised there will be spoilers. So we have a distinctly unbeachy beginning for this movie. Diablo, who is the leader of the Demon's motorcycle gang, is about to be executed for the murder of a young woman. Confronting the victim's sister Gail, he proclaims his innocence and he vows to return before being killed via the electric chair. And so now a year passes and spring break has come to Miami, and we meet two football players, Skip and Ronnie, who are amongst the partygoers for the week-long festivities. Skip is a little bit more subdued. He's kind of a little bit more of like guy next door, jock. Whereas Ronnie is just an utter douchebag, to be honest. And is just like literally every moment wanting to get laid, just like horny for pussy. So while spring break is occurring, a mysterious biker appears and begins to dispatch the people in the area. The bike of his back has a lever that, when pulled, combined with a button pushed by the biker, basically causes a victim to basically get electrocuted, like very similar to the electric chair from the beginning. So when sadly the guys are out, Ronnie and Skip are out, and we have a young woman who hitches a ride with the killer and ends up dead. And so he's basically dispatching like spring breakers. And unfortunately, Ronnie gets pulled into this and ends up a victim of the mysterious killer.
Son of a bitch. Come on, biker punk. Just you and me. I'll kick your ass!
So Skip, his friend, attempts to find Ronnie with the help of Gail, who works as a bartender during spring break, basically at the world's smallest bar. Like the actual bar she tends can maybe fit like 2 bar stools, 2 people, and that's it. It just like made me chuckle every time I see it, is that it's just like such a tiny bar. So the duo soon find Ronnie, and they learn that local police chief Stryker, who is played by John Saxon, and physician Doc Willett, who is played by the awesome Michael Parks, have covered up Ronnie's death for the partygoers to not worry. It's kind of like Jaws, essentially, in that respect. And they basically covered this up because this is a big economy boost for Miami when the spring breakers come. And the police chief is a little bit more okay with it than the doctor is. Michael Parks, who very sadly in the film kills himself before the end, which kind of sucked. And I want to talk a little bit about the ending of this film, because I had some thoughts and ideas for how I kind of wish it would have gone down. But regardless, as the body count rises, Skip and Gale begin to wonder if Diablo actually made good on his promise to return from the dead, or if maybe somebody else is responsible. And in the meantime, we kind of have this weird side plot where this blonde woman, we get no backstory of her really. I mean, I don't think we do. It's just kind of weird. She's a pretty young lady. She checks into the same hotel, I believe, that Skip and Ronnie have, and proceeds to set up shop, I guess, for the time being, and essentially is running a service out of her room where she's making good money for the local men. But it's really bizarre because we're getting this sort of side thing with her, and there's no explanation for it whatsoever. It's just that this is happening, and it's basically an excuse for another death, because the manager of the hotel has a peephole, of course, into the room, and which he spies on her, and which sadly she discovers and is promptly dispatched by our killer in the elevator. So meanwhile, Trina, who is Diablo's girlfriend, is relaxing at the old gang's hideout. She puts headphones on and she's listening to music when this figure appears, and she assumes it's Diablo back from the dead. I don't know why she would assume that. But it's not until he grabs her violently that she realizes it's not him, because apparently Diablo is a big softie. And Trina is slammed on the couch, and it's then that the biker pulls out a live wire out of the wall and attaches it to Trina's headphones, those giant headphones. And so basically, again, killed through electricity.
There. Where are you? Diablo. I knew they couldn't kill you, baby. Don't worry about me and Dog. I'm still yours. See? Oh, baby, take off that helmet so I can see your pretty face.
So a confrontation happens at a local tire yard between Gale and the biker, and it kind of all culminates first of all, there's an extremely slow like moped chase. They're just like Gale and Skip are like, hey, let's see if we can find the killer. You take a walkie-talkie and I'll take the other one, and how about you just drive very slowly on your moped around and say, nope, he's not here. Yeah, he's here. If anything goes wrong. It's kind of insane. It's an insane plan. And so we have a confrontation finally between Gale and the biker, and it's revealed that the killer is Reverend Bates, who we kind of saw from the beginning, just sort of a little bit here and there. He has a daughter who apparently is just like very rebellious and is like, I'm going to do what I want, and I want to dress how I want and hang out with guys and all this kind of stuff, which he, of course, does not like. And he thinks that spring break is nothing more than an excuse for sinning. And considering himself a guardian angel, he feels that all sinners must die like Diablo, death by electrocution. The fact that also Diablo was put to death for the killing of Gale's sister, we also find out that Reverend Bates, he was actually the real killer of Gale's sister. Skip arrives in time and fights off Bates. As the duo run, Bates hops on his bike and goes after them, only to trip his bike on a stray tire. Bates goes off the bike and into an electric field, and like those he murdered and Diablo, he dies by electrocution. So the next day, Skip and Gale decide to leave Florida and head to Ohio, where Skip is from, and bing, bang, boom, there's your movie. If it sounds really kind of like haphazard, it is. So let's get into a little bit of the background on this movie, because there is, of course, there's never just chill when the Italians are involved. So Nightmare Beach was filmed in and around Miami and Fort Lauderdale in the spring of 1988. Just judging by a lot of the shots, especially like at the wet bikini contest. It wasn't even bikini contest. It was a wet t-shirt contest for sure. I know I saw nipples. And it looks like there were already events and stuff like that kind of taking place. I mean, these were like huge, big shots. So I'm kind of wondering if like they just kind of went in and like just like film some of these things that were already kind of happening. So it was during spring break. And there has long been this debate about who actually directed it. So although the film is often attributed to Italian horror legend Umberto Lenzi, he denied calling the shots, but does admit that he had originally been hired, but he fell out with the producers. However, he says he was convinced to stick around and act as a consultant throughout the shoot, and it was screenwriter James Justice from a story by Carlo Rambaldi's son Vittorio, who also helped with the visual effects, who directed it. So, confusingly, both Lenzi and Justice are credited under the same pseudonym, Harry Kirkpatrick. So in a 1996 interview, Lenzi claimed the reason he pulled out of directing the film was that Nightmare Beach was too similar to his earlier giallo movie Seven Bloodstained Orchids, which I think was 1972. So for years, many horror film fans thought Harry Kirkpatrick was an alias for Lenzi. But Lenzi has stated in interviews that there really was a Harry Kirkpatrick who wrote and co-directed that film. He explained, quote, "My contribution consisted solely of providing technical assistance. Welcome to Spring Break should be considered the work of Harry Kirkpatrick." Italian film historian Roberto Curti later stated that Lenzi directed the film but refused to sign it, allowing the credit to be assigned to Harry Kirkpatrick. So this is bizarre and messy, obviously. Obviously Lenzi says that he had pulled out because he had said it was too similar to Seven Bloodstained Orchids, but this, I don't know, for me seems unlikely, as this is the same man who went on to make the wonderfully trashy giallo Eyeball, which I have a poster for actually in my office. So repeating himself across many genres has never really bothered Lenzi before. At least that's what it seems to me, and it kind of seems a strange reason to drop the directorial reins with this film. Both Lenzi and Justice worked on the film that was also shot in Florida, the slasher monkey virus movie Primal Rage in 1988, with Vittorio directing and again starring Sarah Buxton, and also the same producers as on this film, which kind of suggests that they were shot back to back. So it's very bizarre, and I don't know if Lenzi is just kind of like messing with us, probably. But I don't know. It's kind of crazy. So, AllMovie gave the film a positive review, stating that the film was, quote, recommended for cheeseball-loving genre enthusiasts everywhere. Brett Gallman from Oh the Horror wrote in his review of the film, "Welcome to Spring Break is just an unabashed conflagration of boobs and blood, a sex comedy movie that treats its characters like blow-up dolls to be punctured by a madman. If The Burning is a perfect blend of camp comedies and slashers, then this is its trashier, beachy counterpart." Sam Boron of Digital Retribution awarded the film a score of 3 out of 5, writing, quote, "Every facet of Welcome to Spring Break screams of a film that was a prime product of its time, even though its creators traveled halfway across the globe to make it happen. Simply put, if you're a fan of 80s cheese and sleaze, you'll revel in this movie's surplus exploits and have a giddy time in the process. Otherwise, maybe wait until after graduation before having that celebratory case of Heineken." So the film has a Metacritic score of 48%, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 40%, and a Letterboxd rating of 2.7 out of 5. My personal rating, this film has issues. Boy, does it have issues. But there is something to be said for this film. I give it personally, I would say a 7 out of 10. It's fun. It's an entertainingly daft chunk of prime sun-bleached 80s cheese. I mean, we have Miami in the 80s, as you know, and 80s teens doing what they do on spring break, drinking beer and talking absolute filth and, taking part in wet t-shirt competitions and playing dead in hotel pools. And, I think the character of Michael Parks played Doc Willett, described it best in the film as, quote, the annual migration of the idiot. It's really just kind of an excuse to just go crazy. And, you have these childhood friends, Ronnie and Skip, and, and Skip had actually, I think something in the movie, he had like fumbled a big game. I don't know. There are parallels to Ray Finkel, Laces Out, already in the beginning from Ace Ventura. I'm just like getting huge Ray Finkel vibes from him. And, so you have Ronnie, who's already a creep. You have them checking into a hotel run by a creepy guy who's spying on female guests. You have Ronnie, who's like throws, when they check into the room, he like throws like a fistful of condoms at Skip, and he says, I want every one of these used by the end of the weekend, or I'm going to tell everyone you're a bender. I think Doc Willett was onto something. And so when they go to the bar and Ronnie attempts to hit on Gail, he doesn't get anywhere with her, and very nicely calls her a lessee, because she doesn't want to hook up with him. And he decides to go out on, quote, beaver patrol with such chat up lines as, you want to bump short hairs? So he's really awful. He's just so sleazy and a jerk and really has no redeeming qualities. So it's kind of something of a relief when he gets horribly electrocuted by the killer. And basically that sort of brings Skip and Gail together to join forces and all of that. So the killer's biker disguise is kind of interesting because it's already been used multiple times. I don't know. I think, so first, I believe in the Gialli, What Have They Done to Your Daughters in 73, 74, and then Strip Nude for Your Killer in 75, and then again in the 80s in Night School in 81, and then in Nail Gun Massacre in 85. So there's something about the motorcycle killer. And then it's kind of interesting because that feels kind of coming back to like contemporary motifs, homages. It makes me think of The Bride in Kill Bill with that fabulous head to toe yellow motorcycle outfit, out for revenge. So yeah, there's something kind of interesting about the full like motorcycle outfit with the helmet on, because it's mysterious, of course, and it's also slightly menacing, with that blackout face because of the guard, the face guard, whatever it's called. I don't ride motorcycles, I'm sorry. I don't know motorcycle lingo. So, but like I said before, the main inspiration for this movie kind of seems to come from not only early giallo films and slashers, but also from Jaws. You have a practical joker who's scaring like the pretty girls on the beach with the shark fin attached to his back. You have the town mayor even warning that, quote, serial murders during spring break could ruin us, before he takes the somewhat implausible decision to blackmail the alcoholic, obviously gay doctor, to dispose of the initial victims at the local quarry to avoid a scandal, putting off holiday revelers. And it even features a scene where a crowd of spring breakers panic and stampede, but this time not at the beach, but during a big giant hair pop concert. After the repeat practical joker turns up dead for real this time. The somewhat ludicrous suggestion that maybe the electric chair only stunned Diablo and he's really out for revenge is kind of mooted. I mean, it's eventually forgotten, really. The killer's modus operandi of murder by electricity is really kind of done to sort of like, I don't know, perhaps keep the focus on the biker gang. And those scenes are great. Actually, the electrocution scenes are great. It kind of results in like these pleasingly gooey death scenes that were done by the Rambaldi brothers, apparently, the effects. So basically, Nightmare Beach kind of follows the typical slasher narrative very simply, but effectively. You know, you introduce a tiny bit of backstory needed. Very bit, because it really doesn't come into play ultimately. I mean, in a way it does, but it's marginal. Have the main characters arrive at their destination early on, and then you unleash the killer, start to crank up the carnage as red herrings are kind of tossed across the screen. You have lots of blood, and you got lots of naked boobs for the male audience. And hey, maybe even some of the ladies. You have this wafer thin narrative, which is stretched out to its utmost length. And even with the number of subplots that go nowhere, Nightmare Beach kind of tends to outstay its welcome when the killer isn't doing his thing. You know, you have pickpocketing teenagers, you have the blonde who's luring rich men to her hotel room, you have the peeping Tom hotel manager, the corrupt mayor that's desperate to cover it all up, the practical joker's always pulling pranks, the Reverend's rebellious daughter who doesn't want to pray with him, you have the sheriff's deputy or whatever he is. You have John Saxton, who eventually it's discovered like he's when Gail and Skip break into his trailer that he lives in, they find all these like kinky photographs and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, lots of red herrings. You know, you get something kind of resembling characterization, but the majority basically have, you know, zero interaction with each other or the main characters, and they're really just there for fodder. You know, that's all they are. And the film itself is a film with two very distinct parts. You have the slasher and you have kind of the screwball comedy. And when it's slashing, it's a riot. When it's screwballing, it's pretty dated. But, you know, I'm going to say this. I am a child of the 80s, and I grew up, I mean, not like as a little kid, but I grew up watching films like Ski School and like Summer School and all of these kind of like, you know, comedy sex romps that the 80s kind of produced that were just incredibly sexist and misogynistic and all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, listen, I am a woman. I feel that I am a progressive woman. I'm somebody who believes in female empowerment, believes in feminism, is a feminist. But there's a very strong part of me that loves camp. I love camp, and I love things that are, that maybe these days, like, people just would not think is okay. And there's some stuff that still just is kind of like, yeah, that's not great. And I can say that, you know, I can say, oh yeah, that's not great. But some of it, it's just so, it's stupid fun. It's stupid fun. And there's always going to be that part of me that kind of responds to those kinds of films, because, I mean, there were tons of them in the 80s, because that was the zenith of the slasher film, and it was also the zenith of that kind of like, those sex comedies. Obviously before like kind of American Pie kind of sort of came back and brought those back. But in any case, it is dated, but it's still fun. And there's plenty of footage of teenagers partying on spring break, diving in pools, drinking in bars, sunbathing on beaches. There's some of these, like there's like a montage, I think, near the beginning that it almost kind of reminded me of The Lost Boys. When they're coming into the town and sort of it's this montage of what the town is like and what people are doing and the young people. And it just sort of gives a snapshot for kind of what youth culture kind of was at that time. And I feel like that kind of does it a little bit here. But none of the major storyline happens at the beach. And this is kind of, these sort of, wet t-shirt contest and the concert and all this kind of stuff. These sort of things is kind of all filler essentially to pad out the running time. And like many horrors from Italy in the 80s, Nightmare Beach kind of tries to convince us that this is typical America. It is America seen through the eyes of of foreigners, as they assume this is how the youth speak and act. And maybe some of them do, but it's this over exaggerated, and which ends up really kind of being funny. But I have to say, this film is really blessed with some great character actors, and genre regulars. You had, John Saxon, legend. He's always a welcome presence. And he was in what's kind of widely acknowledged as the first proper giallo, The Girl Who Knew Too Much. I believe that was 1963, as well as, of course, Tenebrae, Nightmare on Elm Street. He's great at chewing the scenery as the sheriff. Michael Parks, whose long career, of course, included working with Quentin Tarantino on both of the Kill Bill films. I really liked him in this. These guys always add something. I really thought that both of them did a really great job. They were the ones that, like, whenever they were on the screen, I always kind of gravitate towards them. Sadly, Sarah Buxton as Gail. Oh gosh, poor girl. Pretty wooden. She reacts to, like, I think one of the characters' deaths with basically like a shrug and a, oh no, just like, okay. And Nicholas Detoth as Skip is thankfully better as her co-lead. He's actually the son of director Andre Detoth, who helmed the proto-slasher House of Wax in 1953. And not to mention the little scene slasher Terror House from 1987. And he actually gave up acting after this, but he's actually since gone on to be a successful editor on high profile Hollywood blockbusters. And Nightmare Beach was a US Italian co-production, but on the surface it appears to actually have much more in common with the waning slasher genre. More than sort of the giallo. There are giallo elements, absolutely. It has more than a touch of this late Italian 80s horror to it, from the sheer audacity and the kind of gleeful ridiculousness of the kills. That definitely recalls the more outlandish examples of giallo. That rigged motorbike is wonderfully stupid. It's so fun. Both Demons and Nightmare Beach, of course, they also share the same composer, Claudio Simonetti. That heavy pounding heavy metal that accompanies all the action sequences is again very reminiscent of the trend that was set by Bava and Argento's collaboration on Demons. So of course it they use the same music in that. So it has a lot going for it. And like most slashers, the real joy of Nightmare Beach is basically saying, how crazy the kills are. I mean, seriously, this biker is, well, the Reverend is one creative person who's basically meticulously planned like every single detail and possible outcome of murdering someone. I mean, if they've not pimped up their motorcycle to only electrocute the person riding on the back, then they're hiding on top of a lift and waiting for someone who's like just discovered a dead body to enter so that they can finish them off too. I mean, like, what if they had taken the stairs, or if they hadn't found the body for another few hours, or were they just going to like lie patiently on top of the lift? So it's crazy. The practical effects, obviously somebody being electrocuted or burnt, are excellent. I believe like there's kind of like layers of makeup applied to some, while there's like obviously dummy heads with kind of blasted with fire for, I think that was Ronnie's death, this kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark's head melting. And I like the biker outfit. I do like the biker outfit. It's a nice change for like the usual mask wearing, psycho killer. But in talking about the ending of this film, and the problem with how madcap some of the buildup is that the finale, I feel like, was always going to be a disappointment. And this ending is like straight up Scooby-Doo. Like, who the biker was, it kind of comes totally out of left field. And in complete contrast to the way the character had behaved in the film up until that point. And it's kind of hard to care about the character and their motivations, given that they were pretty non-existent earlier on. My thing, what I would like for this film to change the ending, I feel like Michael Parks should have been the killer, because he's the medical examiner. I feel like he had so much guilt and like issues and all of this kind of stuff. I don't know. I just felt like something with his character, having him be the killer, because he's also like kind of helping Skip and Gale as well before he kills himself. And I would have liked, because he did it over the phone, so what I think would have been kind of cool, actually, is if he had been on the phone with them and basically like was like, I can't do this anymore, blah, 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 and faked his death, because you hear the gunshot, and who better to fake their death than a medical examiner, and to throw everybody off the scent of him. And I think that would have been like a cool twist, like being like, nope, he's not dead. He faked his death so that it would throw all of you guys off at the trail. And having the Reverend being the killer, it just doesn't make sense. And it does feel very Scooby-Doo. It's just like, it's the owner of the haunted amusement park, basically trying to get away with these deaths. So yeah, but up until that point, like, I really love the film. It's just so much, it's a lot of dumb fun. It's the spring break of slasher movies. It's overbaked, excitable, and undemanding of us. And sometimes that's all we want in a film. So that is Nightmare Beach. The movie, sadly, is unavailable to watch on any streaming platform. I watched it on my Blu-ray. If you do want to watch it, I highly recommend the transfer from Kino Lorber. That's the one that I have. It's really good, and it is available for purchase on Amazon. So I do recommend the watch. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. So that was Nightmare Beach, and now let's head over to the Horror Files News Corner. So A24 and Peacock's planned Friday the 13th TV series, Crystal Lake, basically went up in smoke earlier this year, with showrunner Bryan Fuller from Hannibal being fired from the project and leaving the fate of the small screen project unclear. So what really happened? Well, the Wrap just dropped this last week a heck of an exclusive report, basically untangling the behind the scenes mess. So to kind of refresh your memory, Peacock had given the project a straight to series order in 2022, with Crystal Lake being described as a, quote, expanded prequel to the original Friday the 13th franchise, featuring both Jason Voorhees and his mother Pamela. Now, according to the Wrap's new report, Charlize Theron was being eyed to play Mrs. Voorhees. Other new details from the Wrap's report also revealed that the episode, written by Kevin Williamson, who famously did Scream, was going to take place, quote, entirely on a frozen crystal lake, with Williamson recently describing the episode as a, quote, hour-long chase. Friday the 13th fans have been begging for a Winter Set Friday installment for many years now, and A24 was basically set to deliver just that. Additionally, Vincenzo Natali from Cube and Splice and Kimberly Pierce, Boys Don't Cry and Carrie, were set to direct episodes, with the budget ballooning to around $10 million per episode. With 8 episodes in total planned for the first season, it would have cost A24 roughly $85 million to bring the series to life, with additional seasons being planned by the studio. The Wrap's report notes, quote, in the grand ambition of Crystal Lake, each season would be a deconstruction of the first 4 Paramount movies. The series would also incorporate lore from several sequels, but remix that material in a way similar to Fuller's Hannibal. Vincenzo Natali had recently tweeted, quote, I have read the first 2 episodes. Bryan Fuller's Crystal Lake was well on its way to becoming another Hannibal-level reinvention that was simultaneously beautiful, sad, poetic, funny, and horrifying. I mourn its passing. So what happened? Well, according to the Wrap, Bryan Fuller was fired from Crystal Lake just 3 months before production was set to begin this summer. The Wrap notes, quote, Crystal Lake was plagued by inexperienced production executives making questionable decisions, problems with the show's writing staff, and conflicts between showrunners and executives. You can read more about each of those issues in the Wrap's report, which dives deep into a handful of behind-the-scenes challenges that led to A24 pulling the plug on Fuller's vision of the series. The good news is A24 reportedly hasn't given up on the series itself at this time. They and Peacock are now searching for a new showrunner for the series, with Nick Antosca from Channel Zero and Brand New Cherry Flavor reportedly in the mix to potentially take over. The Wrap notes, quote, according to one source close to the project, A24 is still committed to making the show, although it's unclear if the studio will use the original Fuller scripts and outlines or start from scratch with new creative leadership. The website reports goes on to indicate that if Nick Antosca ends up as showrunner, he would jettison the work already done. So, oh my goodness. Well, there's always drama around Friday the 13th. So yeah, what a mess. The viral marketing campaign kicked off last week for Paramount and director Parker Finn's Smile 2, and as promised, the film's first official trailer arrived this week. Naomi Scott leads the cast of Smile 2, which arrives in theaters on October 18, 2024. Scott is playing a fictional pop star named Sky Riley in the upcoming horror sequel, and in addition to the Smile 2 trailer, Sky's single Blood on White Satin has been released. In Smile 2, quote, about to embark on a new world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley, Naomi Scott, begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressures of fame, Skye is forced to face her dark past to regain control of her life before it spirals out of control. The announced cast for Smile 2 also includes Kyle Gallner from Smile, the first Smile, Rosemarie DeWitt from The Staircase, Lucas Gage from The White Lotus, and Dylan Gelua from Dream Scenario, alongside Raul Castillo from Army of the Dead, and Miles Gutierrez Riley from The Wilds. We'll see. It's kind of interesting. I feel like, with this and I believe it's called Trapped. I can't remember. But M. Night Shyamalan's new film coming out. Pop stars in horror films are kind of having a moment right now. It's kind of interesting to see. I think it's the Taylor Swift effect. Gosh. I'm not even going to go into that. So Neon wants to make sure not a day goes by in the next month that you're not thinking about their new acclaimed horror movie, Long Legs, and today is no exception. Neon has set up a dedicated phone number you can call to have a little chat with the man downstairs, who happens to be a serial killer dubbed Long Legs. He's played by Nicolas Cage in the upcoming movie. And dialing, apparently, the number will result in a deeply unsettling pre-recorded message from Cage's latest character. The number is 458-666-4355. Dial it if you dare. Long Legs arrives in theaters July 12th. The upcoming serial killer horror movie marks the return of director Osgood Perkins from The Black Coat's Daughter and Gretel and Hansel. Nicolas Cage stars alongside Micah Monroe, with Monroe playing an FBI agent and Cage playing a serial killer. In the film, quote, FBI agent Lee Harker is a gifted new recruit assigned to the unsolved case of an elusive serial killer. As the case takes complex turns, unearthing evidence of the occult, Harker discovers a personal connection to the merciless killer and must race against time to stop him before he claims the lives of another innocent family. I am very excited for this one. I am intrigued, and I'm glad that they've kept things fairly vague, at least at this point. So I really want to go in with basically the only information that I have so far, which is not a lot, which is good. Filming officially wrapped last week in New York on Damien Leone's slasher sequel, Terrifier 3, and it's been confirmed by Deadline on Monday that Jason Patric from The Lost Boys and Narc has joined the cast. Quote, to say it's an honor and a privilege having Jason on board is an understatement, says director Damien Leone. He's one of the best actors of his generation and has a deep respect for this franchise and his craft, which is why I'm thrilled for fans to see his pivotal role in the Terrifier universe. Leone adds, quote, it's not every day I get to work with the star of some of my favorite films. If you know me, you know how I feel about The Lost Boys in particular. So this has been a dream come true and a very exciting collaboration, to say the least. In Cineverse and Bloody Disgusting's Terrifier 3, directed once again by Leone, Art the Clown, played by David Howard Thornton, is set to unleash another round of chaos on unsuspecting residents of Miles County as they peacefully drift off to sleep on Christmas Eve. A returning cast includes Lauren Lavera, who plays Sienna, Samantha Scafaldi, Victoria Hayes, Elliot Fulham, Jonathan Shaw, and AEW superstar Chris Jericho as Burke, with Daniel Roebuck set to debut as Santa Claus. Makeup effects legend Tom Savini will also appear. Terrifier 3 opens exclusively in theaters nationwide on October 11th, 2024. Written and directed by Leone, Terrifier 3 comes courtesy of Dark Age Cinema Productions. Terrifier 2 was produced on a micro budget and then went on to generate more than 15 million at the global box office, generating significant buzz, generating a scary amount of press coverage, and popping up everywhere from Saturday Night Live and Bupkis to rap lyrics and ugly holiday sweaters. Terrifier 3 was actually named by USA Today as one of the top 10 most anticipated horror films of 2024. Following the theatrical release, Cineverse plans to release the film across all platforms, including its Screambox horror streaming service. Terrifier is also bleeding into other areas, including Halloween t-shirts, podcast, and novelizations. So, yeah, it will be, I'm sure it will be actually even bigger probably than Terrifier 2. So, word of mouth gets out about these films. So that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, you can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Threads at DeadLiveDana. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes or movies for me to talk about, you can email me at deadlivedana@gmail.com. And until next time, monsters, stay safe and most importantly, stay spooky.